Behind every fortune and every failure stands an unseen planet. When you align with it, your life becomes a river of gold. When you resist it, your life becomes a desert of debt. I speak the law of that planet now. I will show you how to step into this secret orbit of abundance. You will see why money resists you when you chase it, and why it runs to you when you speak with power. You will learn how to break the chains of fear and command the planet that governs your prosperity. Stay with me, for in this teaching lies the difference between a lifetime of struggle and a lifetime of divine supply. You may have worked for years, prayed for relief, or tried every scheme the world offered. Still, money slips away, bills pile high, and freedom feels far, the world says. That is life. I say it is bondage to false law. For there is a higher law, a planet hidden from most eyes, that turns lack into plenty, debt into surplus, despair into joy. I have seen men at the brink of ruin lifted in a day when they learned this law. I have seen women with nothing but faith call forth riches beyond their asking. This law is simple, but few walk in it. Today, I will place it in your hands. In this lesson, I will take you step by step through the orbit of this secret planet. You will see the exact words that magnetize money. You will see how doubt, fear, and idle speech cast you out of its flow. You will see why your past efforts failed, and how one shift can open floodgates no man can shut. Along the way, I will reveal stories of those who aligned with this planet and saw miracles of supply, so that you, too, may recognize the signs and claim your own demonstration. And before we close, I will give you words of power to speak tonight, words that will set this planet moving for you before you rise again tomorrow. Most people think money comes from their job, from their toil, or from the economy. But I tell you this: money circles back to you from your own words, just as surely as the moon circles the earth. Here's something most people completely miss. The tongue is a planet. Every word you speak goes out in orbit and returns to you, carrying its own harvest. If you speak fear, fear returns. If you speak lack, lack returns. If you speak riches, riches return. You don't escape the orbit of your words, for your world is built by the very sentences you release. I've met people who laughed at this law until they saw the results in their own lives. A woman once came to me in tears. She had once lived in comfort, with a fine home, servants, and abundance. But now she lived in a cramped room with only a trunk for her belongings. I asked her, "How did you get here?" She said, "Oh, for years I was sick and tired of managing my house. I used to say over and over, 'I wish I lived in a trunk.' And so it was." Her words traveled out like a planet and returned with their own orbit of proof. She had spoken herself into that trunk. Let me tell you another case. There was a woman of great wealth who always joked about getting ready for the poorhouse. She thought it was harmless humor. But the subconscious has no sense of humor, and her words were obeyed to the letter. In time, her fortune slipped away, her riches melted, and she found herself facing real lack. Do you see how faithful the orbit of words is? You can't play with them, for they are law. Now perhaps you're wondering, "But Florence, if every careless word comes back, what hope do I have? I've spoken so much doubt in my life." I tell you this: you can break the orbit. You can command new words and set new planets in motion. You can say now, "I smash every untrue record in my subconscious. I now make new and perfect records through the Christ within records of health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression." Speak it aloud, with power, and the old orbit loses its pull. So I ask you, what have you been speaking into your inner world? Have you been saying, "I never have enough, I can't keep money, I always struggle"? If so, you're only watching your own orbit return, but you can change it today. Your words are magnetic fields, your phrases are planets, and they must obey their creator you. And here's what's most exciting: this law is no respecter of persons. If it worked to bring lack, it works equally to bring abundance. The very tongue that called in poverty can just as easily call in plenty. The orbit does not change, it is always faithful, but the words you release can be changed at any moment. That's why I say, don't curse your finances, don't curse your bills, don't curse your job. Bless them. Send words of increase into orbit and watch them return to you with their harvest. I'll tell you plainly, the world is filled with people joking themselves into failure, complaining themselves into sickness, and gossiping themselves into debt. But there are also those who have learned this secret planet. the planet of words, and they have spoken themselves into fortune, health, and joy. And you too can step into that orbit now. Now that you see how every word circles back, you may ask, what is it that gives words their power? Why do they always return? The answer lies in imagination. It is imagination that pulls substance into form, just as gravity pulls the planets in their paths. And I'll show you exactly how that works. Most people wander through life blind to the pictures they carry in their own minds, and yet those very pictures are the unseen gravity that holds their entire world together, drawing into form the exact experiences they have secretly entertained. What I am about to share may seem strange at first, but it is the very key to understanding why money flows easily to some and continually escapes the grasp of others. The imagination is the great magnet, the unseen law of attraction that never sleeps, and whatever you hold therewith, feeling, whether good or evil, must sooner or later appear on your path. I once knew a man who feared a certain disease. It was rare, difficult to contract, and yet he studied it, read about it, imagined it, and pictured himself afflicted until his body obeyed the picture in his mind. In the end, the disease appeared, and he died, not because it was common, but because his imagination had gravity more faithful than the stars. Can you see the lesson? You cannot hold a picture in mind without drawing it into orbit. Whether it is sickness or supply, sorrow or success, your imagination is the force that gives it weight and brings it into your world. So I ask you, what pictures are you carrying? When you think of money, do you see bills piling up, debts chasing you, opportunities slipping away? Or do you see a stream of gold, accounts overflowing, unexpected channels opening in perfect ways? The subconscious is simply power without direction, and it takes its orders from imagination. That is why I call imagination the scissors of the mind. It cuts out the pattern, and the subconscious obeys. If you cut the pattern of lack, lack must come. If you cut the pattern of abundance, abundance must appear. The law does not fail. I once had a woman who, as a little girl, loved to pretend that she was a widow. She dressed in black, wore a long veil, and amused others with her play acting. The picture imprinted itself on her subconscious. Later in life, she married a man she dearly loved, and in a short time he died, leaving her exactly the image she had cut with her childish play. She did not know she was playing with the most powerful instrument in the universe, her imagination. That is why I warn you, do not trifle with mental pictures. The subconscious does not laugh, it does not play. It only fulfills the image impressed upon it. But here is the good news. The same power that draws destruction will just as faithfully draw every righteous desire of your heart. I have seen those who set their imagination only on good, on health, wealth, love, and right work, and they brought into their lives every perfect pattern. The imagination is your personal creative studio. What are you painting upon its canvas? Every picture carries gravity. Every image has weight. You cannot escape your own creations. So when you rise in the morning, set your pictures high. See yourself walking in freedom. See your purse bulging with plenty. See your work as joyous and divinely paid. Refuse to picture delay, sickness, or loss. For if you give them space in your imagination, they will grow roots and cling to you like iron. Instead, train your inner sight to see only the good. For as surely as the planets circle the sun, what you see within will circle back to you without. Now that you see imagination as the gravity that shapes your orbit, you may ask, but where do these pictures go once they are formed? How do they actually become my conditions? The answer lies in the subconscious, the great soil of life, the silent power that grows whatever seed you plant within it. Let me show you how this soil works, and how you can direct it to grow only good. Here is something most people never stop to consider. The subconscious mind is simply power without direction. A mighty soil that receives every seed you plant, and it does not argue, it does not question, it does not weigh or measure, it only brings forth in exact detail whatever has been impressed upon it. You may think of it as a field lying open day and night, never resting, never refusing, always ready to germinate whatever is cast upon it. If you sow thorns, you reap thorns. If you sow wheat, you reap wheat. The soil does not say, I will give you roses though you have planted weeds. It is law, and law never falters. I once told a woman to carefully examine the records she had been playing upon the sensitive plate of her subconscious. For every thought, every word, every mental picture is etched there, just as the voice is etched upon the phonograph disc. If a singer coughs while making the record, the cough is preserved. If he hesitates, the hesitation is preserved. And when the record is played, every sound, every mistake, every pause is faithfully repeated. So it is with us. If you have impressed failure, worry, resentment, or fear upon the subconscious, it will play them back into your world in perfect detail. And until you break the record, you must hear the same song. But thanks be to God, we are not condemned to listen forever to the old music of defeat. You may speak a word and shatter the disc, commanding that every false record return to the dust of nothingness, for it came from nothing and has no true power. I often instruct my students to say aloud, with authority, I now smash and demolish every untrue record in my subconscious mind. They shall return to the dust heap of their native nothingness, for they came from my own vain imaginings. I now make new and perfect records through the Christ within the records of health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. And when this is said with conviction, something breaks in the unseen, and new songs begin to play. Now let me ask you, have you been listening to the same weary record over and over again? Have you noticed the same disappointments repeating, the same losses circling, the same relationships souring in the same way? Do not blame fate, do not blame God, do not even blame others. Look within. The soil has only grown the seed you yourself cast into it. If you do not like the harvest, change the seed. If you are tired of poverty, stop planting words of want. If you are weary of delay, stop planting pictures of failure. Remember, the subconscious is not your enemy, it is your servant. It is waiting, even now, for your next command. One of the greatest discoveries you can make is this. There is always a silent listener at your side, your subconscious mind. Every idle word, every faint wish, every dread you secretly entertain, it gathers, it preserves, and it brings to life. Therefore I tell you, watch your words, watch your imaginings, for you are sowing constantly, and the field never sleeps, and I assure you, the harvest will be as abundant as the seed. So from this day, speak only that which you desire to see. Do not tell people about your illnesses if you want health. Do not complain of your bills if you want abundance. Do not repeat the gossip of failure if you long for success. Plant only that which you wish to reap, and the soil will not fail you, for the subconscious is faithful beyond measure. And now we arrive at the most practical part of all the planet itself, the very tongue, the spoken word, that swings your entire orbit of money. You will see that your words are not empty sounds, but living commands, and when you speak, the universe itself obeys. Let me show you how your tongue is the secret planet that controls the flow of your fortune. And now I tell you the greatest secret of this hidden planet. It is your own tongue, your spoken word, your voice that cuts through the unseen and sets entire worlds in motion. The scriptures declare it with unmistakable clarity. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, not in money, not in chance, not in toil, but in the tongue. Every word you release is a decree, every phrase a law, every sentence a planet hurled into its orbit, destined to return to you bearing the exact harvest of its seed. And most people, in their ignorance, speak themselves into bondage. They curse their finances, they belittle their opportunities, they gossip, lack, and disease into existence, and then they wonder why their lives echo with poverty, why their bodies grow weak, why their days fill with delay and obstruction. They do not know they are only reaping what they themselves have spoken. But the same power that condemns can just as surely justify. The same tongue that called in failure can call in success. The same lips that spoke want can speak abundance. For your word is your wand, and when you wave it in faith, the wilderness rejoices and blossoms as the rose. I once treated a woman who came to me with only $2 to her name. She was trembling, she was weary, she did not see a way out. And I said to her, "We will bless these $2, and we will know that they are the magic purse of the Spirit. It can never be depleted. As money goes out, immediately money comes in, under grace, in perfect ways." And I spoke the picture aloud. I see it crammed, jammed, pressed down, and running over with bills, with checks, with gold and silver. And the woman was so filled with faith she gave me one of those dollars as a love offering. Not long after, she received $6,000 as a gift. Her fear was broken, her orbit shifted, and the secret planet of her tongue swung her into riches she could not have planned. Now I ask you, what words have you been loosing upon your life? Do you say, I am always broke, nothing ever works for me, I can't get ahead? If so, do not be surprised when the orbit of those words returns and proves you right. But you can just as easily declare, I am now linked with an endless golden stream of prosperity which comes to me under grace in perfect ways. My supply is immediate and inexhaustible. I see doors opening, I see channels free, I see every debt dissolved. Say it until the words burn in your bones. Say it until your subconscious obeys. Say it until you feel yourself already walking in the promised land. For the universe always answers to the tongue that speaks with faith. I remember being at sea one morning, when the fog was so thick the horns were blowing without cease. There was no sign of clearing. And a woman, filled with truth, declared, There are no fogs in divine mind. Let the fog be lifted. I give thanks for the Sunday. And soon the fog rolled away and the sun burst forth in glory. Now what lifted the fog? Was it chance? Was it luck? Was it accident? No, it was the words spoken with authority, the tongue acting as the planet, commanding the elements to obey. And if fog obeys, if seas obey, if the weather itself obeys, shall not money obey, shall not opportunity obey, shall not every door swing wide when you speak the word of truth? So from this day, be conscious of the planets you are setting into orbit with every conversation. Refuse idle talk of sickness and lack. Refuse the jest that carries the sting of fear. Refuse the complaint that engraves lack into your soul. Instead, train your tongue to utter only life, only increase, only praise, only abundance. For when your word aligns with the divine law, it cannot return void. It must prosper in the thing whereunto it is sent. And when you know this, you will no longer fear money or circumstances, for you will know the secret planet of supply moves at your command, and your world will become a harvest of your own declarations. You now see the planet revealed. It is your word, your imagination, your subconscious, your tongue. But how do you step into its orbit? How do you bring the unseen into sight, when appearances deny you and reason mocks you? The answer is preparation, the digging of ditches before the rain, the act of faith that calls forth the invisible supply. Let us move now into that law, and I will show you how to prepare for the flood of abundance long before the first drop of rain appears. Here is a truth that overturns the whole world's thinking. You must act as though the wealth is already yours before it comes into sight. For faith is not waiting until the money is in hand. Faith is behaving as though the promise is already fulfilled. Most people make the mistake of preparing for lack while praying for supply. They plan for failure while asking for success. They buy the smallest portion. They choose the cheapest road. They shrink their actions to match their fears. And then they wonder why the floodgates of abundance remain closed. But I tell you this, the universe answers only to faith, and faith always acts rich before riches appear. I recall a woman who came to me in great distress, trembling under the threat of a lawsuit for $3,000. She saw no way out, for she had no resources, no wealthy friends to call upon, no bank that would lend to her. She expected the knock on the door, the shame of being dragged into court, the humiliation of defeat, but I spoke the word for her, declaring, God is your supply, and there is a supply for every demand. I instructed her to behave as though the money was already in hand, to act her faith, not her fear. I even told her, take me to lunch, and do not economize, for to skimp now would be to prove you believe in lack instead of supply. So she ordered freely, holding fast to the picture that the debt was already paid. Now listen to how the law works. On the very eve of her ruin, her cousin appeared, a man with a long white beard, a man she had not thought to call upon, and before leaving her home he said, "Oh, by the way, how are your finances?" She confessed her need, and he promised to give her $3,000. At first, he said she must wait until the first of the month, but she needed it the very next day. I told her, Spirit is never too late. The money is already yours in the invisible. Give thanks for it now. And the very next morning, the cousin called again and said, "Come to my office at once. I will give you the money today." And so she walked into court with every dollar she needed, the burden lifted, the victory won. Do you see the lesson? She might have collapsed into fear, closed her purse, pinched her pennies, shrunk her actions to match her despair. But by acting rich before riches appeared, by behaving as though supply was already hers, she flung wide the door for spirit to work in miraculous ways. So I ask you, how are you acting today? Are you buying the cheapest shoes because you fear tomorrow's lack? Are you storing up food because you dread a famine? Are you hiding money away in terror of loss? Then you are proving your faith is in evil and not in good, and the orbit of those acts will return the very thing you fear. Begin instead to act in harmony with abundance. Treat yourself as though you were already heir to the riches of God, for you are. Make room for blessings, set your table for plenty, enlarge your tent for increase, for by your actions you prove the words you speak. Faith without action is dead. To say, I believe, while moving in fear is no faith at all. But to bless what little you hold, to give thanks as though the increase is already poured out, to act as though the debt is already paid, that is faith alive, and faith always draws its demonstration. So from this moment, stop acting poor. Stop preparing for failure. Begin to carry yourself as one divinely financed, divinely protected, divinely supplied, for the planet of money cannot resist the orbit of true faith, and your world must rearrange itself to match your acts of confidence. And yet, some will say, but Florence, I am too afraid to act that way. My mind runs to every possible disaster. I prepare excuses and arguments for why the supply won't come. And that is exactly the trap. Faith prepares the way for blessing, but fear prepares the way for loss. Let me show you how fear delays and faith accelerates, so you may see clearly the difference between a life of defeat and a life of divine supply. Now let me open before you one of the greatest stumbling blocks to man's good. He prays for abundance with his lips, yet with his actions he prepares for failure. He speaks words of wealth in the morning and spends the afternoon rehearsing excuses for poverty. He claims divine supply, but carries in his mind endless pictures of what he will say when the collector calls, what he will do when the purchase bank refuses, how he will manage when everything collapses. And in doing so, he cancels his own prayer. For the subconscious does not measure the words of your mouth against the visions of your heart, it simply accepts the strongest impression, and most often, fear is more vivid than faith. So though he has declared success, he has prepared for defeat, and the soil gives him exactly what he planted. I knew a man who came to me desperate about a certain debt. He asked me to speak the word that it be wiped out. I agreed, but as I looked into his eyes, I saw the images already playing behind them. He had spent hours rehearsing failure. He pictured the day of reckoning, the shame of confessing, the quarrel with the man he owed. He imagined himself cornered. He imagined the worst words being hurled at him, and in rehearsing it so vividly, he was in truth preparing the ditch of his own loss. I said to him, "Can't you see you are neutralizing my treatment? You are digging ditches, yes, but they are shallow, filled not with water but with dust. You must picture yourself free, picture yourself writing the check, picture the joy of the debt dissolved. Faith digs deep ditches. Fear digs holes that collapse. This is why I tell you that what you prepare for is what comes to pass. A woman who prepares for illness by setting aside money in case she falls sick has already carved the channel for sickness to come. A man who hoards for a rainy day without ever affirming sunshine has already made covenant with the storm, and when the storm breaks he thinks it chance, but I tell you, it is only the outworking of his preparation. Your outer world cannot exceed the images and acts of your inner world. So let me ask you plainly, are you preparing for the thing you fear? Do you secretly expect to fail even while you say you wish to succeed? Do you brace yourself for rejection while praying for acceptance? Then I tell you, shift today. Erase those inner rehearsals and begin to prepare only for your good. Dig ditches wide and deep. Buy the blankets for the apartment before the lease appears. Choose the trunk for your voyage before the ticket is in hand. Act as though the harvest is ripe while the field looks barren, and in so doing, you prove your faith, and faith never delays. It only hastens the day of fulfillment. Faith and fear are both creative, but one is swift and the other is slow. Fear builds obstacles. Fear clouds the path. Fear drags the hour hand of the clock so that every blessing seems late. But faith is oil to the gears. Faith clears the fog. Faith opens the way. The minute you choose to prepare in faith instead of fear, delays vanish, blockages dissolve, and the invisible supply begins to take visible form. So I say again, Stop rehearsing the tragedy. Stop preparing your excuses. Stop living as though evil is more powerful than good. Dare to prepare for the best, and the best will come. For God is never too late, and He is never too small. He is the God of abundance, and every ditch dug in faith shall be filled to overflowing. And now that you see how fear delays and faith accelerates, let me take you deeper into the key that multiplies whatever you hold. Gratitude is the force that turns little into much, that makes $8 become thousands, that turns a handful of loaves into food for the multitude. Gratitude is the golden oil that multiplies every seed you sow. Let me show you how thanksgiving opens the sluice gates of prosperity. There is a law so simple, so overlooked, that when I speak it, men smile as though it were too small a thing. Yet it is the very lever that moves mountains. It is the force that multiplies every seed. It is the hidden key that unlocks the storehouses of supply, and that law is gratitude. Gratitude is the voice of faith. It is the song of the soul that knows its good is certain. It is the fragrance of a heart that already sees the harvest while the field still looks empty. Most people wait until they see the blessing before they give thanks, but in truth, it is the thanks that brings the blessing. For when you bless what little you have, you prove to infinite intelligence that you know the source is endless. And when you complain over your portion, you shut the very gates that would have poured out abundance. I remember one summer's day when a woman came to me faint, weary, dejected, with only $8 to her name. She looked at that small sum as a sentence of doom, as though life had shrunk her to poverty's corner. But I said to her, "Good, we will bless the $8 and multiply them as Jesus Christ multiplied the loaves and the fishes, for every man has the power to bless and to multiply, to heal and to prosper." I spoke aloud. Infinite Spirit, open the way for great abundance for this woman. She is an irresistible magnet for all that belongs to her by divine right. I told her to repeat it continually and to be thankful as though the flood of supply was already pouring. She obeyed. She followed her intuition home, and through the linking of friends and the opening of unexpected channels, she received thousands of dollars in the most miraculous way. And she often said to me after, "Tell people about the woman who came to you with $8 and a hunch. Do you see it? Gratitude multiplied the little she held. It lifted her from despair into expectancy, from expectancy into magnetism, and from magnetism into manifestation. She did not curse her $8, she blessed them, and blessing turned them into thousands. The law works without fail. What you bless increases, what you curse withers. If you bless your work, it prospers. If you bless your home, it shines. If you bless your money, it multiplies. But if you despise your work, complain of your home, grumble over your money, you choke the channel and the flow dwindles. So let me ask you, when you open your purse and see only a little, do you sigh and say, "This is not enough"? Or do you bless it and declare, "I see you multiplying, I see you growing, I see you becoming a river of plenty"? Your attitude decides your harvest. Gratitude is faith's perfume, and God Himself inhales it and pours out more. When you give thanks before the blessing appears, you prove that you trust the law, and the law never fails. And mark this well, gratitude is not merely a word, it is a vibration. It is not a perfunctory thank you, but a deep inner song, a thrill of certainty, a joy in knowing that the good is already yours. Sing it in your heart, whisper it with your lips, let it color your every act, and you will see multiplication on every side. For as the psalmist declared, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of abundance forever." And now that you see the power of gratitude to multiply what you hold, let us look at another striking example of faith in action. The story of a woman who bought blankets before she had an apartment, digging her ditch, while others told her she was a fool. This lesson will show you that preparation is the proof of belief, and that every purchase made in faith is a shovel in the soil of your demonstration. There comes a time when faith must clothe itself in action, when words alone are not enough, when the soul must step into the visible world and prove by deed that it believes in the invisible supply. Too many say they believe, yet they refuse to move a finger until they see the result. But that is not faith. That is doubt waiting for evidence. Faith acts without evidence. Faith prepares before sight. Faith digs the ditch when the valley is dry. Faith sets the table while the cupboard looks bare. And let me show you the law at work in a story that still makes me rejoice every time I recall it. There was a woman in New York in a year when apartments were scarce, when thousands were hunting and few were finding, when landlords had lists 200 names long for a single vacancy. To the reasoning mind, it was hopeless. Friends pitied her, saying, "Isn't it too bad? You'll have to store your furniture and live in a hotel." But she refused the suggestion of lack. She said instead, "You needn't feel sorry for me. I am a Superman, and I will get an apartment." She came to me and we spoke the word together. Infinite Spirit, open the way for the right apartment. She knew there was a supply for every demand. She knew that one with God is a majority. Soon after, she thought of buying new blankets. Immediately the tempter whispered, "Don't buy them. Perhaps you won't get an apartment after all, and you'll have no use for them." But she caught the lie and answered back, "I will dig my ditches by buying the blankets." She acted as though the apartment was already hers, as though the bed was already waiting, as though the home was already prepared. And not long after, she found an apartment, and though 200 others had applied, it was given to her. Her blankets were the token of her faith, and the law responded by filling her ditch with overflowing water. Can you see how simple and how strong this law is? The world calls it foolishness to prepare before the evidence, but I tell you, it is the highest wisdom. If you say you want a new home, then make ready for it, clear out the old clutter, give thanks for the perfect place, even buy the curtains or the lamp that belongs there. If you say you want abundance, then stop shrinking your life to fit poverty, enlarge your tent, make room for the blessing, carry yourself as though you were already in possession. If you say you want work that fulfills you, then prepare for it, study, ready yourself, walk as though you are already appointed. For your preparation proves your expectation, and expectation is the magnet that draws the good into sight. I tell you plainly, the universe does not withhold from you. It waits upon your act of faith. Every preparation you make in confidence of your supply hastens the day of its arrival. Every hesitation, every shrinking back, every fearful withholding delays it. You cannot dig ditches in the dust and not see the rains fall. You cannot buy blankets in faith and not see the bed provided. You cannot enlarge your life for abundance and not see abundance flow. The law is sure, the law is exact, the law is faithful. And just as blankets prepared a home, so did a simple trunk prepare a man for a voyage. The law does not care whether the demand is small or great, whether it is for an apartment in New York or a trip across the sea, the principle is the same. Act as though you already have it, and it must come to you. Let me now tell you the story of the trunk that carried a trip into manifestation. Now I will tell you of a man whose longing was to travel abroad, to see new lands, to walk the streets of Europe, to breathe the air of the sea. But his purse was empty, his means were small, and to all outward appearance, such a trip was impossible. Yet he understood something of divine law, and he came to me saying, "I so desire to go, but I cannot see the way." I answered him, "Prepare for your trip as though it were already ordered and paid for. For what you prepare for in faith must come to pass." Faith is not hoping, faith is not wishing, faith is knowing, and knowing always expresses itself in action. He believed my word. He went out and bought a trunk, not a small, miserable trunk, but a gay and happy one with a red band about its waist, a trunk that seemed to laugh with anticipation of travel. And every time he looked at it, his heart leaped, for the trunk itself preached to him, "Your trip is certain, your voyage is prepared, your passage is secured." And what followed was nothing short of miraculous. One day, as he sat in his room, he suddenly felt it move. As though the walls themselves swayed with the motion of a ship, he went to the window, and the air smelt of the docks, the salt of the sea was in his nostrils, and in his inner ear he heard the shriek of a gull and the creaking of a gangplank. The trunk had already set him in vibration with the voyage. He was no longer a man wishing for a trip, he was already a passenger in consciousness, and the subconscious must always bring forth into sight that which it holds in feeling. Not long after, a large sum of money came to him in a way he could never have planned, and he took his trip in every detail exactly as he had pictured. This is the power of acting in advance, the secret of digging ditches. A trunk became the magnet that pulled an ocean voyage out of the invisible. A man's willingness to prepare in faith, though reason mocked him, became the act that opened the door to his desire. And so I tell you, if you would see your dream appear, do not wait to prepare until it is in sight. Buy the trunk, set the table, enlarge your house, purchase the token of faith that proves you believe the invisible is already visible. The law must answer, for it cannot deny itself. Too many sit and wait, saying, when I see, then I will act. When the money comes, then I will prepare. When the door opens, then I will walk. But I say unto you, it is the walking that opens the door. It is the preparation that brings the money. It is the buying of the trunk that calls forth the trip. Faith always goes first. Supply always follows. That is the order of the law. So I challenge you now, what is your trunk? What act can you make today that proves your faith in the unseen good? Is it setting aside a corner of your home for the work you long to do? Is it buying the tool of the trade that belongs to your perfect employment? Is it preparing a place at the table for the companionship you desire? Find your trunk, act your faith, and watch the invisible become visible. Now, once you have acted, once you have dug your ditches, once you have bought your blankets and your trunk, the waters must flow. But many find that even after their acts of faith, something seems to block the stream, something seems to dam the flood. And I will tell you what it is. It is the walls of Jericho, the great walls of resentment, fear, and old thought forms that shut out the very good you have prepared for. And in the next lesson, I will show you how to bring those walls down with a shout, how to dissolve every obstruction, and how to march freely into your promised land. When the children of Israel stood before Jericho, they faced walls so high and thick that to the reasoning mind they could never fall. Yet by the power of the shout, by the words spoken in faith, those walls crumbled to dust, and the people marched straight into their inheritance. And I tell you today, every man and woman has built walls around their own Jericho, and the highest and strongest of these is resentment. Resentment is a wall of stone, shutting out supply, shutting out harmony, shutting out the very blessings that press to enter. You cannot harbor resentment in your heart and expect abundance to flow. You cannot carry the weight of envy and expect freedom. You cannot cling to bitterness and expect joy. The law is exact, and resentment must be dissolved before the floodgates open. I once spoke with a woman whose heart was embittered because a friend had received a gift she herself longed for. She said, "Why should she have it and not I?" Her envy rose like a wall, and she found herself shut out of her own good. I gave her the statement, "What God has done for others, He now does for me and more." She repeated it until the bitterness was gone, until the wall began to crumble, until her heart was free. And soon enough, she received not only an exact duplicate of her friend's gift, but an additional blessing besides. That is the way of the law. When resentment is dissolved, good rushes in, often in double portion. But let me show you the subtlety of resentment. It does not always appear as raging jealousy. Sometimes it is a quiet grievance held against a parent, a spouse, a friend, or a foe. Sometimes it is a record in the subconscious of injustice long rehearsed, a wrong nursed like a wound until it festers unseen. And though years pass, the wall stands, blocking health, blocking wealth, blocking happiness. The person prays and wonders why nothing happens, but prayer cannot pierce resentment. The wall must first come down. So I ask you, whom do you resent? Is there someone whose success you secretly envy? Is there someone you believe has blocked your path? Is there a memory you replay that fills you with bitterness? Then that is your Jericho, and until the wall falls, your good cannot flow. You must forgive, not for their sake, but for your own. You must bless them, you must release them, you must say with all your heart, there is no competition in divine mind. What God has done for others, He now does for me and more. And as you say it, feel the wall begin to crack, feel the stone tremble, feel the power of love dissolve the bitterness. Do not wait another day, begin now. Walk around your Jericho with the shout of truth. Declare that no man and no woman can withhold from you what is yours by divine right. Declare that resentment has no power, envy has no hold, bitterness has no weight. Declare that the wall falls now, and see yourself stepping over the rubble into the city of your inheritance. For when resentment crumbles, you find that the city is filled with treasure, and all that was waiting for you flows into your hands. And yet, resentment is only one wall. There is another that holds back multitudes, perhaps more subtle, but just as deadly, and that is fear. Fear is nothing but faith in evil, faith turned upside down, and it is the great hypnotist of the age. In the next part, I will show you how fear, when entertained, builds a fortress around your life, and how, by the same law, it can be dissolved in an instant by the word of faith. Fear is man's only enemy, for fear is nothing but faith turned upside down, faith in evil instead of faith in good, faith in failure instead of faith in success, faith in sickness instead of faith in health, faith in lack instead of faith in abundance. And I tell you, whatever you fear you draw, for fear is magnetism, and it calls to itself the very thing it dreads. The book says, "The thing I feared has come upon me, and this is not poetry but law." To tremble at disaster is to invite it. To rehearse calamity in your mind is to give it an engraved invitation. To speak constantly of what might go wrong is to put your signature upon the document of its fulfillment. Fear is creative, and it creates the very picture it paints. I recall a man who was always fretting over his health, imagining that every ache was the beginning of some dreadful disease. He studied medical books, he examined himself in mirrors, he filled his imagination with symptoms until at last the disease he feared took hold of him. The law never fails. What you fix your thought upon you bring into form, whether for good or for ill. Another student of mine came to me tormented by anxiety, expecting trouble at every turn. I told him, "You are using your faith backwards. Instead of trusting God's law of good, you are trusting the world's law of evil, and it is answering you with uncanny precision." I gave him a little sentence to carry in his mind whenever fear rose up. Why worry? It will probably never happen. He repeated it until it broke the spell, and his life, which had been a parade of imagined disasters, began to straighten itself into harmony. But let me show you how subtle fear is. It comes often dressed as caution, as prudence, as foresight. A woman says, "I will set aside money in case of illness," but she is not acting in wisdom, she is preparing for disease. A man says, "I will save for a rainy day," but he is not acting in foresight, he is preparing for the storm, and when the storm breaks, he thinks it came uninvited, but in truth, he called it with his fear. Fear digs ditches too, but they are not ditches for blessings, they are ditches for calamity. The universe cannot distinguish between faith and fear except by the object upon which they rest. Both are magnetic. Both are creative, both draw their like. So I say unto you, do not fight fear, do not wrestle with it, for in resisting it you only make it stronger. Rather, turn it upside down, transmute it into faith, declare boldly, "I walk in the light of divine protection, I shall not fear what man can do unto me. The power of God goes before me, making clear, safe, and happy my way." Speak it aloud, shout it if you must, until the wall of fear shakes and falls. For the walls of Jericho did not fall by silence, but by a great shout of faith. Fear cannot live in the same house as praise. When you fill your mouth with thanksgiving, fear flees. When you keep your eye single to the good, fear has no hold. When you declare, "God is my immediate and endless supply, and I have nothing to fear," then fear melts like mist before the Sunday. Remember this always. Fear delays, faith hastens. Fear shuts doors, faith opens them. Fear paralyzes, faith makes swift. And you alone can choose which planet you will set in motion, the planet of fear or the planet of faith. And now we come to another wall, more hidden but just as binding the wall of old records, the stale grooves of the subconscious where failure has been played so often that it repeats without ceasing. Until these records are smashed, a man lives the same story over and over again. Let me now show you how to break those untrue records and set your subconscious singing a new song of abundance. Deep within every man and woman lies a hidden phonograph, and upon its wax are etched the grooves of every word spoken, every thought entertained, every picture long held in the mind. The subconscious is faithful, more faithful than any servant, for it never forgets, it never sleeps, it never fails to replay the record that has been impressed upon it. If a man has rehearsed failure, the record of failure spins endlessly, and he finds himself stumbling at the same stone again and again. If a woman has spoken of loss, of betrayal, of disappointment, the record turns like a wheel, casting her life in the same sorrowful pattern year after year. Many wonder why they live the same story on repeat, why one illness follows another, why one debt follows another, why one heartbreak follows another, and the answer is simple. The subconscious is playing the same old record, and until the record is broken, the song of life cannot change. I once had a student who came to me distraught, saying, "Why is it that every opportunity seems to vanish? I rise a little, only to fall again. I meet a new friend, only to quarrel. I earn a bit of money, only to lose it." As she spoke, I heard the old record spinning. She had told this story so many times, she had impressed it upon her subconscious, and it obeyed like a dutiful servant. I told her, "You must smash the record, for it is not true. It came from your vain imaginings, from the illusions of fear, from the hypnotism of the race thought, but it has no power except the power you have given it. Speak the word now." I smash and demolish every untrue record in my subconscious mind. They return to the dust heap of their native nothingness, for they came from nothing and have no power. I now make new and perfect records through the Christ, within the records of health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. She repeated it faithfully, day after day, and soon the needle lifted from the old groove, and a new song began to play. Her life shifted, new opportunities appeared, money flowed in steady channels, friendships blossomed, and she laughed, saying, "I did not know I was living in a phonograph, but thank God the record has changed." Do you see, then, how crucial it is to guard the records you make? Every idle word, every gloomy prophecy, every complaint cuts a groove upon the plate of the subconscious, and the subconscious plays it back with exact fidelity. If you say, "Nothing ever works for me," then nothing will. If you say, "I always fall ill in the winter," then so you shall. If you say, "Money never stays with me," then money will vanish. But if you choose to speak only the words of truth, only the words of abundance, only the words of health and joy, then you etch new grooves, and the music of your life will be transformed. So I challenge you now, break every bad record. Do not cherish them, do not replay them, do not keep them for sentimental reasons. Smash them boldly with the spoken word of truth. Say aloud, "I erase, I demolish, I shatter every false record. They vanish as mist before the Sunday." And then, just as boldly, begin to play the new records. I am divinely supplied. I am strong and radiant with health. I am loved with an everlasting love. I walk in my perfect self-expression, and all doors are open to me. Play them until the subconscious knows no other song, until your life rings with new harmonies, until people say, "What has happened?" Everything about you has changed, for in truth, the only thing that changed was the record. And now, having seen how resentment builds a wall, how fear digs a ditch for calamity, how old records spin out the same weary story, we come to the final act of deliverance, the shout. Just as the Israelites shouted before Jericho, so too must you raise your voice and proclaim the word of truth, for the shout of faith has power to shake the very foundations of limitation and bring every wall down flat. Let me show you how to shout your way into your promised land. There are times when a quiet prayer will not suffice, when a whispered, "The word is too faint," when the stronghold of error has stood so long and so heavy that it must be shaken to its very foundation by the trumpet blast of truth. And this is why the story of Jericho has come down through the ages, for it is not merely the tale of an ancient city, it is the pattern of every man's life. The Israelites circled those walls once each day, saying nothing, only holding the faith, and then on the seventh day they shouted with a great shout, and the walls fell down flat. And I tell you, that is the law in action, silent expectancy followed by the word of power, and no barrier can stand against it. I have told my students many times, you can dissolve obstacles with a whisper if you truly believe, but there are seasons when your whole being must rise and proclaim aloud the truth with such force that the very atoms of the air are stirred. Words are not idle, they are living currents of energy, radioactive forces that penetrate matter, dissolve obstructions, and reorder circumstances. When you speak them with fire, when you shout them with conviction, they carry the vibration of thunder, and no wall, no debt, no sickness, no resentment, no fear can withstand them. One woman came to me paralyzed by delay. Everywhere she turned, doors were shut. She had prepared, she had prayed, she had believed, yet still she felt blocked. I told her, "You must shout your way through. Stand up and declare. The walls of lack and delay now crumble away, and I enter my promised land under grace. In perfect ways. Speak it as though you see the walls falling before you." She did, and as she spoke the words her whole body thrilled with power. She saw in her mind's eye the wall collapse, And within days, the demonstration came, doors swung open, obstacles vanished, and her supply flowed freely. Perhaps you too have walked around the walls of your Jericho, circling in silence, holding the vision but wondering why nothing changes. I tell you, the time has come to shout. Lift up your voice, speak with authority. Say, "Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea," and do not doubt in your heart. The shout is not noise, it is the vibration of certainty. It is not pleading, it is proclamation. It is not asking, it is commanding. And when you shout with faith, the subconscious hears, the universe obeys, and the walls fall. So do not be timid, do not be ashamed to raise your voice. Stand in your room, stand in your office, stand wherever you are, and declare aloud the words of truth. For as surely as the trumpet blast leveled Jericho, your word will level every wall that bars your good. And once the dust has settled, you will find yourself stepping into the city of your inheritance, taking possession of riches, opportunities, friendships, and freedoms that were waiting all along, just on the other side of the wall. Now, when the walls have fallen and the land lies open, a new question arises. How shall I walk in it without losing my way? How shall I discern which door to enter, which road to take, which opportunity is truly mine? For the world is full of voices, and many lead to delay or confusion. But there is a compass more faithful than the stars, a guide more certain than reason, a planet within you that always points to your true north, and that compass is intuition. Let me show you how to follow it, and you will never lose your path again. When the walls have fallen and the land lies open before you, the question is no longer, "Can I enter?" but rather, "Which way shall I go?" For there are many roads, many doors, many voices clamoring for your attention, and if you listen only to reason, you will soon be led into confusion, delay, and detour. Reason is a faithful servant but a blind guide, for it can only calculate with the scraps of the past, it can only measure with the yardstick of appearances, it can only analyze what has already been seen. But intuition, intuition is the voice of God. Within, the still small voice that speaks from the infinite, the whisper that says, "This is the way, walk ye in it." And when you obey that voice, you find yourself at the right place, at the right time, meeting the right people, receiving the right supply, as naturally and as surely as the river finds the sea. I remember a businessman who came to me frantic over a loan he had to secure. He had applied at the bank, but he feared rejection, and reason told him to give up, to retreat, to abandon his plan. But as he walked down the street, something within whispered, "Turn back." He resisted at first, thinking, "It is useless, they have already said no." Yet the voice persisted, "Go back now." He obeyed, and just as he entered, the officer who had earlier refused him had received fresh instructions, and the loan was granted without delay. Had he listened to reason, he would have walked away empty-handed. By listening to intuition, he walked into his demonstration. You see, intuition is never anxious, never hurried, never confused. It speaks in quiet certainty, a gentle nudge, a sudden knowing, a hunch that refuses to leave. It is the language of the spirit, and it is always right. Reason says, "You cannot afford it, you cannot do it, you will fail." But intuition says, "All things are possible under grace." Reason says, "There is no way." But intuition says, "I am the way." And when you learn to distinguish the two, when you silence the clamor of fear and listen to the still small voice, you discover a compass more accurate than all the maps of men. Do not despise the little leads. A sudden thought to take a different street, to speak to a stranger, to look again at an opportunity, may seem small, but in those small things are hidden the great demonstrations. Spirit is not bound to the thunder and the earthquake. Often it speaks in the whisper of a hunch. And if you train yourself to obey instantly, without argument, without delay, you will see doors open that reason would never have dreamed. So I tell you now, intuition is your divine North Star. It points unerringly to your good. It is the guardian angel that never slumbers, the watchman at the gate who sees danger before it comes, the invisible friend who knows the road. Train yourself to listen, practice in small matters, and soon you will trust it in great ones. Say each day, "I am divinely sensitive to my intuitive leads, and I follow them without hesitation, for they are the voice of God guiding my path. Speak it until it becomes your nature, and you will walk in safety, in supply, in perfect timing, all the days of your life. And now that you see intuition as the voice above reason, let us go further and see how obedience to that voice opens doors no man can shut. For it is one thing to hear intuition, and quite another to follow it, and many miss their blessing because they hesitate, they argue, they delay. In the next part, I will show you how obedience unlocks doors and carries you swiftly into your good. It is not enough to hear the whisper of intuition, you must obey it, for the blessing is never in the hearing alone, but in the doing. Many people confess to me that they have felt that gentle nudge, that sudden flash of guidance, that quiet inner voice that urged them one way or another, but they hesitated, they delayed, they argued with reason, and the moment passed. Later they said, "If only I had obeyed." They wept over missed opportunities, over delays that could have been avoided, over dangers that could have been averted, had they only trusted and followed without question. And I say to you, every time you silence that voice, you close a door that was ready to swing wide. Every time you obey it, no matter how small the matter, you find yourself walking into a miracle. Think of the countless stories where obedience meant life itself. A man walking home late at night suddenly feels an urge to take another street. It seems foolish, it seems inconvenient, but he obeys, and later he learns that danger awaited on the road he avoided. A woman senses she must call a friend at once. She obeys, and her call arrives at the exact moment that friend was in despair, turning them back from disaster. Spirit does not shout, Spirit does not argue, Spirit does not force it, simply speaks, and if you obey, the way opens. If you ignore, the door shuts. I recall the familiar parable often told of the man caught in a flood. He prayed earnestly for God to save him. A rowboat came, but he waved it away, saying, "No, God will save me." Then a motorboat arrived, and again he refused, declaring, "God is coming to help." Finally, a helicopter hovered above, but still he turned it away, waiting for divine rescue. At last, he drowned, and when he entered the beyond, he cried, "Lord, why did you not save me?" And the Lord answered, "I sent you a rowboat, a motorboat, and a helicopter, but you refused." The moral is clear, intuition is God's voice, and the forms it takes may look ordinary, but the ordinary is often the very channel of the miraculous. Obedience is what turns guidance into demonstration. Do not wait for thunder and lightning. Do not demand a great sign. Learn to act upon the quietest lead. If the Spirit nudges you to leave the house 5 minutes earlier, obey. If it prompts you to write a letter, obey. If it tells you to speak a word to a stranger, obey. The smallest act of obedience may be the key that opens a treasure house. And remember this: obedience without delay is obedience indeed. If you pause to weigh and measure, reason will talk you out of it. Obey at once, for hesitation is disobedience in disguise. I tell you now, if you would live in the continual flow of supply, make obedience your law. Say each day, "I am quick to hear and swift to obey my intuitive leads. I act without hesitation, knowing God guides every step." And as you do, you will find yourself moving through life as though doors swung open at your approach, as though invisible hands prepared the way before you, as though all things conspired to favor you. For indeed they do, when you obey the voice within. And now let us look deeper still, for intuition is not only a voice, it is a symbol, a power wrapped in story, a mystery woven into fairy tales and legends. Even the tale of Cinderella with her fairy godmother is but a parable of the superconscious mind, showing us how intuition breaks old thought forms and ushers us into our rightful destiny. Let me open that picture to you, that you may see your own fairy godmother within. Since childhood, men and women have been enchanted by fairy tales, dismissing them as mere fancy, yet every true story that endures is built upon divine symbols, and if you have eyes to see, you will find the law of life hidden within them. The tale of Cinderella is not the dream of a child's mind, but the map of the soul's journey. For it shows with striking clarity how the superconscious, the divine self, the inner guidance, the intuitive voice steps in as the fairy godmother to break the spell of old thought forms and to usher the soul into its perfect destiny. Consider Cinderella herself. She lives in bondage, confined by a cruel stepmother and envious stepsisters, scrubbing floors, covered in ashes, mocked and despised. These figures are not people outside of us, but the very thought forms we carry within the old records of lack, of limitation, of envy, of resentment, of self-pity. They keep us small, they dress us in rags, they tell us we are unworthy of the ball, unworthy of the prince, unworthy of joy. And so long as we believe their voices, we remain bound in the ashes of defeat. But then the fairy godmother appears. She is the superconscious mind, the divine intuition that knows nothing of rags and ashes, that sees only the radiant design hidden beneath. She waves her wand, which is but the symbol of the spoken word, and the rags fall away, the ashes are dust, the pumpkin becomes a carriage, the mice become horses, and Cinderella herself shines as a princess. What has happened? The old thought forms have been dissolved by the higher law. Intuition has spoken, the word has been uttered, and the demonstration appears. Now listen closely, for the story teaches another law. The fairy godmother warned Cinderella that the spell will break at midnight unless she proves herself ready. Midnight is the symbol of delay, of returning to the old state of mind. How many times have you glimpsed a moment of glory, felt a touch of abundance, experienced a taste of success, only to let the clock strike 12 and slip back into the rags of doubt? The lesson is clear. You must hold the vision, you must continue to affirm, you must keep the consciousness of the princess, even when appearances try to drag you back to the ashes. If you persist, the prince who is the symbol of your heart's desire cannot fail to find you, for he is seeking the very soul that matches his vibration. So I say to you, there is a fairy godmother within you. It is not outside, it is not in another's hand. It is the Christ within, the intuitive voice, the divine self that never forgets your royal destiny. When you call upon it, when you trust it, when you obey it, it transforms your conditions as surely as wand and word transform the pumpkin and the mice. It takes you from the kitchen to the palace, from the ashes to the throne, and it does so not by labor or struggle, but by the magic of alignment with the higher law. Therefore, stop listening to the stepsisters of envy, of fear, of resentment. Stop obeying the stepmother of limitation that keeps you scrubbing the same floor of failure. Lift your eyes. Call upon your intuition. Say within yourself, the fairy godmother within me now waves her wand of truth. My rags are gone, my carriage awaits. I am dressed in the garments of success. I am worthy to enter the ball of life and to dance with my destiny. And as you say it, you will feel the shift, you will see the change, you will know that your true self has stepped forth. And now that you have followed the compass of intuition, obeyed its leads, and seen the fairy godmother within, you are ready to take the final step dominion. For intuition may guide, but it is your tongue, your spoken word, that commands. The planet of supply moves at the decree of your lips, and when you speak as ruler, all creation answers. Let us now enter the realm of dominion, and learn how to command the planet itself. Now we come to the highest truth I can give you, the crowning jewel of this whole teaching. Your word is your wand. The tongue is the scepter of dominion, the voice is the planet that governs supply, and every decree you make shapes the conditions of your life. People imagine their words to be light things, casual things, idle chatter that drifts away on the air and vanishes. But I tell you, every word is substance, every word is law, every word is energy that travels forth, circles like a planet in its orbit, and comes back to you bearing fruit after its kind. To say, I am broke, is to decree poverty. To say, I am unlucky, is to decree failure. To say, I never get ahead, is to build a wall across your own path. But to say, I am divinely supplied, is to open floodgates. To say, I walk in favor, is to summon opportunities. To say, I am strong and radiant with health, is to align your body with the law of life. Every word is a seed, every word is a planet, and every planet is faithful to return. I recall a woman who came to me with trembling hands and a fearful heart. She had but $2 to her name, and she clutched them as though they were her last hope. She said, Florence, what can I do with this? And I told her, we will bless this money, for the $2 is not your source, it is only a seed. The true source is infinite and inexhaustible. Speak the word, I bless these $2. I see them multiplying. They are divinely magnetized, and they draw to me great abundance. This purse is the purse of spirit, it cannot be depleted. It is always crammed, jammed, pressed down, and running over with wealth from unexpected channels, under grace, in perfect ways. She obeyed, she released $1 as a gift, proving her faith, and she carried the other with a new vision. Not long after, she received a gift of $6,000. The orbit of her words had returned, not with pennies but with thousands. Do you see? It was not the $2 that multiplied themselves. It was the words spoken over them, the decree of faith that charged them with divine magnetism. Words are containers of power. They carry the vibration of your belief, and the universe obeys their command. That is why the Master said, "By thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned." He did not say by thy labor or by thy struggle. He said by thy words, for the word is the wand that works the miracle. So I say to you, be careful with your words, for they are never idle. Never again declare lack, never again prophesy failure, never again curse your own affairs. Speak only that which you desire to see. Bless your money, bless your work, bless your body, bless your future. Declare boldly, I now draw from the abundance of the spheres my immediate and endless supply. All that is mine by divine right comes to me now, under grace, in perfect ways. Speak it with the certainty of one who knows that the word spoken in faith must return fulfilled. And do not think you must wait long. Words travel swiftly. They set forces in motion immediately. If you have been careless with your words in the past, begin this day to set new planets in orbit. Begin to speak life, speak plenty, speak joy, and watch as the old orbits of lack and limitation lose their power. The new words will soon overtake the old, and your world will be transformed. For the tongue is the wand, and every decree spoken in faith is a spell of truth that no force of error can resist. Now that you see your word as the wand of power, let us look more deeply at how these words act as planetary orbits, circling faithfully through the unseen until they return to you with demonstration. You will see that no barrier can withstand the command of the spoken word, for the very mountains crumble when you say, "Be thou removed." Let us step into that vision now. Every word you speak is not a momentary sound that dies upon the air. It is a living force, a planet flung from your lips into the vastness of the unseen, circling in its appointed orbit until the day comes when it swings back into your experience, carrying the harvest of its own nature. Think of that, and you will never again call words idle. They are never idle. They are always moving, always creating, always returning, and what they bring depends wholly upon what you have sent out. If you send out words of lack, they return with lack. If you send out words of fear, they return with fear. If you send out words of strength, of joy, of abundance, of victory, they return bearing those very gifts. You are living today in the orbit of the words you spoke yesterday, last week, last year. And if you would change your tomorrow, you must begin by changing your words today. The scriptures abound with this truth. When the walls of Jericho fell, it was not by hammer or sword, but by the shout, the word released with faith that shook the very stones. When Jesus stood at the tomb of Lazarus, he did not argue with death, he did not plead with God, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." And the dead man walked out alive. When Peter said to the lame man, "Rise up and walk," it was the word that set the power of spirit into action. Always the word, for the word is not sound, it is vibration, it is command, it is law. Even in the tales of the world, this truth is preserved. Think of Ali Baba, who stood before the mountain of treasure. No key could open it, no force could move it, no reasoning could unlock it. But when he cried, "Open sesame," the rocks rolled back, and the treasure lay revealed. Do you suppose such stories endure for no reason? They endure because they carry a hidden truth, that there is a word, spoken with faith, that opens the sealed places, that parts the barriers, that reveals the storehouses of abundance. And I tell you, that word is not locked away in some ancient cave, it is upon your lips even now. I remember a student who came to me despairing, saying, "Every door is shut, I knock, and nothing opens." I told her, "It is because you are knocking with complaint instead of command. You must stop saying, 'Nothing ever works for me,' and begin to say, 'I now open the way for my immediate supply, under grace, in perfect ways.'" She obeyed, she spoke it over and over, and within days the most unexpected channel opened, bringing her exactly what she required. The orbit of her words returned, not with the echo of complaint, but with the answer of demonstration. So I say to you, see your words as planets, see them flung forth in glowing orbits, circling through the unseen, gathering substance, drawing to themselves people, places, and events, and returning to you laden with the very essence of what you spoke. Do not fling out dark planets of anger, of fear, of resentment, for they will come back like meteors of destruction. Fling out only shining planets of truth, of love, of plenty, of joy, for they will return like suns, lighting your whole life with their glory. And remember, the orbit is faithful. What goes out must come back. Therefore, guard your tongue as you would guard your fortune, for in truth it is your fortune. Now let us go further still, for if your words are planets, then affirmations are there. Royal decrees, the spoken laws that shape entire worlds. And I will give you the very affirmations that have broken chains, dissolved debts, multiplied money, and opened doors that no man could shut. These are not idle phrases but commands of dominion, and when you speak them, the universe bows to obey. When a king sits upon his throne, he does not plead with his subjects, he does not wring his hands or beg them to obey, he issues a decree, and the decree is law. So it is with you, child of the Most High. You are heir to divine dominion, and your throne is the consciousness of truth, your scepter is the tongue, and your decrees are the affirmations you speak. They are not mere phrases, not hollow words, not weak repetitions, they are living laws, they are commands sent forth into the unseen, and the universe hastens to fulfill them. When you affirm, you are not asking, you are ruling, you are not pleading, you are proclaiming. You are not hoping, you are declaring what already exists in the mind of God, and by your word you bring it into sight. I have given my students countless affirmations, and I have watched their worlds change. One who had been bound by lack spoke daily, I now draw from the abundance of the spheres my immediate supply. All channels are free, all doors are open. Infinite Spirit is never too late, never too soon, but always on time. She spoke it with faith, and soon her finances shifted. Unexpected checks arrived, opportunities opened, and the sense of want vanished. Another, who was hemmed in by delay, proclaimed, the walls of lack and delay now crumble away, and I enter my promised land under grace, in perfect ways. She saw in her inner vision the walls falling flat, and within days her demonstration came. You may say, but Florence, I have spoken affirmations and nothing happened. I tell you, it is not the words alone, but the spirit with which they are spoken. A parrot may repeat a phrase 1,000 times and remain in its cage. But when a man or woman speaks with faith, with authority, with vision, with the certainty that the thing is already done, the affirmation becomes a decree, and the decree becomes a fact. Speak as one having authority, not as a beggar at the gate but as an heir in the house. Say it until you feel it, and when you feel it, the demonstration must appear. Let me give you affirmations that carry the ring of dominion. Speak them aloud and watch the atmosphere change around you. I am now linked with an endless golden stream of prosperity, which comes to me under grace in perfect ways. I give thanks that every demand is immediately met, that every bill is paid, that every obligation is fulfilled, and that I walk in freedom and plenty. There is no competition in divine mind. What is mine by divine right cannot be taken from me, and what is not mine, I release in peace. I stand fearless, free, and abundant, for God is my supply, and my supply is sure. These are not empty words, they are laws. Speak them morning, noon, and night. Speak them when fear whispers, speak them when lack looms, speak them until they ring truer than the voice of doubt. For as surely as the decree of a king moves armies, so does your affirmation move the unseen forces of spirit, and they will rearrange circumstances, people, and events to bring your word to pass. So take up your throne. Stop begging, stop hoping, stop wavering. Speak as ruler, affirm as heir, decree as king. For your word is your law, and your law is fulfilled the moment it is spoken in faith. And yet there is a higher secret still, for dominion is not a grim duty or a heavy burden, it is a joy. To speak the word should not feel like toil, it should feel like music. To command the law should not be dread, it should be delight. Dominion is the art of joyful command, and when you learn to play this game with gladness, life itself becomes a song of victory. Let us end this lesson there, with the secret of joy in command. There is a danger, when first learning the law of the spoken word, to treat it as though it were some stern discipline, a heavy task, a grim duty to be performed with furrowed brow and anxious spirit. But I tell you, the law is never served in heaviness. The law answers to joy, to delight, to the light step and the lifted heart. Dominion is not toil, it is play. To speak the word should not feel like dragging a burden up a hill, it should feel like striking the strings of a harp. Each affirmation is a note, and together they make a song of triumph. When you delight yourself in the Lord, the scripture says, He shall give you the desires of your heart. Why? Because delight is faith at its highest pitch. Joy is the surest evidence of belief. When you affirm with gladness, you have already received, and heaven hastens to make visible what you have claimed in song. I knew a woman who, when she first came into truth, spoke her affirmations with such solemnity, such effort, that her face grew drawn and her voice heavy. She said, "Florence, why is nothing happening?" I answered her, "Because you are making the law a drudgery when it is meant to be a game. Say it joyfully, laugh as you say it, rejoice in it as though it were already done." She obeyed. She began to speak with a light heart, clapping her hands, singing her affirmations as if they were hymns of praise. And almost at once the atmosphere around her shifted, the heavy clouds of delay broke, and her demonstration came swiftly. For the moment she made the law her joy, the law became her servant. Understand this well, sorrowful command carries little power. Fearful affirmations are powerless. But when the word is spoken with the glad certainty of a child expecting his Christmas gift, then the gates fly open. A child never doubts, he delights. He goes to bed smiling, certain of his gift. That is the spirit in which you must speak. Say, "My supply comes now, under grace, in perfect ways." And let the words thrill you, let them make you laugh, let them be as real to you as gold in your hand. Say, "The walls of lack and delay now crumble away," and picture them tumbling down as you dance over them into your promised land. The law of abundance is a game, not a grind. It is a song, not a sentence. It is a feast, not a famine. Play it with joy, and you will win every time. Treat it as drudgery, and you will weary yourself into delay. This is why I tell my students, make it fun. Write your affirmations in bright colors, sing them as you walk, laugh as you speak them. Rejoice before the blessing appears, and the blessing will come running to you. So, my beloved, take up your wand of words with gladness. Command with a smile, rule with laughter, decree with delight. For dominion is not meant to weigh you down but to lift you up. The universe loves a joyful ruler, and it will pour out its treasures upon the one who rules in song. And now you have seen the hidden planet unveiled. You have learned that your imagination is the gravity, your subconscious is the soil, your tongue is the planet, your faith digs the ditches, your shout brings down the walls, your intuition guides the way, and your affirmations are the royal decrees of dominion. Let us now gather these truths together in a closing word, so that you may leave with a clear command, a strong affirmation, and an open curiosity for what lies ahead. And so, dear listener, we have walked together along the path of the hidden planet, and the mystery has been unveiled. You have seen that it is not the stars in the heavens that govern your money, nor the movements of chance, nor the decrees of men, but your own word, your own imagination, your own obedience to the law of faith. You have learned that your imagination is the gravity that pulls unseen substance into form, that your subconscious is the fertile soil which brings forth whatever seed you plant, that your tongue is the planet itself, forever setting worlds in orbit by the words you speak. You have seen that to dig your ditches is to act in faith before the rain falls, that to break the walls of Jericho is to forgive, to release, to shout the word that dissolves resentment and fear. You have seen that intuition is the compass, the still small voice guiding you through the open land, and that dominion is the crown of it all, where you command with joy, affirm with gladness, and decree with certainty. These are not theories. They are not shadows. They are living laws. And when you play this game with faith, the demonstration must appear. So now I call you to make your own declaration, here and now, with me. Speak it aloud if you can, whisper it if you must, but let it ring in your heart with the rhythm of truth. The walls of lack and delay now crumble away, and I enter my promised land, under grace, in perfect ways. I am linked with an endless golden stream of prosperity which flows to me freely, richly, joyously, and ceaselessly. I bless my world, I bless my supply, I bless my path, and I walk in abundance, health, and perfect self-expression now and forevermore. Say it as though it were already done. Rejoice as though the harvest is already in your hands. And watch how swiftly the invisible takes visible form. And as we close this lesson, I leave you with a vision of what is to come, for there is another planet, even more hidden than the one we have uncovered today. It does not govern your money alone, but your destiny itself. Few have found it, fewer still have entered its orbit, but those who do find their whole life transformed. Without it, riches turn to dust, success turns to ashes, freedom fades into bondage. But with it, everything you touch prospers. Everything you do succeeds. Every step you take leads you nearer to your perfect design. In my next teaching, I will show you the secret door to success, the hidden gate that few ever pass, and I will give you the key. So do not stop here. The journey has only begun. You have learned to command the planet of money. Now learn to enter the orbit of your destiny. Click here, follow me into the next revelation, and let us open together the secret door to your divine success. For I tell you, your promised land is nearer than you think, and your future waits just beyond that door.